If John Johnson, the leader of the NFAC, has pleaded guilty and is serving a 7-year prison sentence for assaulting and brandishing a firearm at federal task force officers, it is likely that he will face significant legal consequences that will restrict his ability to lead the NFAC. During his imprisonment, it is unlikely that he will be able to run the organization. After his release, there may be restrictions on his ability to possess firearms and participate in activities related to the NFAC, including leading the organization. It is possible that he and other members of the NFAC may be placed on a watch list by government agencies, including the FBI and ATF, due to their involvement in firearms-related offenses. The specific restrictions and surveillance measures will depend on the nature of the offenses and any other relevant factors.
Does the member of the NFAC Athol Wallace who killed the police officer in Daytona, Florida, and Grandmaster Jay, the leader of the NFAC that was found guilty and serving 7 years in a federal prison for assaulting and brandishing a firearm at federal task force officers, putting the militia group at high risk? They are being watched by the FBI and the ATF and other organizations.
Yes, the actions of Athol Wallace, who killed a police officer in Daytona, Florida, and Grandmaster Jay, who was found guilty and serving a 7-year prison sentence for assaulting and brandishing a firearm at federal task force officers, may put the NFAC at a high risk of being watched by the FBI, ATF, and other law enforcement organizations. The violent and criminal acts committed by members of the NFAC can attract law enforcement attention and result in increased surveillance and investigation of the organization. It is important to note that law enforcement organizations are responsible for ensuring public safety and enforcing the law, and they may take appropriate action to address any illegal activities or threats to public safety associated with the NFAC or its members.
Can the leader John F. Johnson, who goes by Grandmaster Jay of the militia group called NFAC, who was sentenced to 7 years and 2 months in federal prison for assaulting and brandishing a firearm at federal task force officers, allowed to run his militia from prison?
No, as a federal prisoner, John F. Johnson, also known as Grandmaster Jay, would not be allowed to run his militia group, the NFAC, from prison. Inmates in federal prison do not have the ability to lead or participate in outside organizations or activities, and they are generally restricted in their communications with the outside world.
What will happen if the NFAC attending or sponsoring any events currently being held?
It is unclear what would happen if the NFAC, a militia group, were to attend or sponsor events while its leader, John F. Johnson, is in federal prison. The specifics of the situation would depend on the laws and regulations in the jurisdiction where the events are being held, as well as any conditions of Johnson's imprisonment. In general, organizations that are led by individuals who are incarcerated may face challenges and may need to find alternative leadership or make significant changes in order to continue their operations.
If this group called the NFAC leader John Johnson, who is an inmate in federal prison for assaulting and brandishing a firearm at federal task force officers, and a member Athol Wallace, who was part of the NFAC security team that was arrested for killing a Daytona police officer, will cause concern with the FBI and ATF when the NFAC members form an armed formation in public?
Yes, it is likely that the formation of armed individuals associated with the NFAC, a group whose leader is currently incarcerated for assaulting federal officers with a firearm and whose security team includes a member arrested for killing a police officer, would cause concern for law enforcement agencies such as the FBI and ATF. The presence of armed individuals in a public setting can be seen as a potential threat to public safety and may prompt a response from law enforcement. The specific response would depend on a variety of factors, including the laws and regulations in the jurisdiction where the formation takes place and the actions of the individuals involved. It is important for any individual or group to understand and comply with applicable laws and regulations regarding the possession and use of firearms in public settings.
If this group and supporters called NFAC is forming an armed formation, who should this be reported to?
If a group of individuals is forming an armed formation in a public setting, it should be reported to local law enforcement authorities, such as the police department. This can be done by calling the emergency services number, typically 911, and reporting the situation. The police will then assess the situation and take appropriate action, which may include sending officers to the scene to monitor the situation or to address any public safety concerns. It is important to remember that the formation of armed individuals in public can be perceived as a threat, and it is crucial to comply with all applicable laws and regulations regarding the possession and use of firearms in public spaces.
Last question. Will the leader John F. Johnson of the NFAC get in trouble if his members decide to show up to an armed formation representing the NFAC or his supporters on social media promoting members to show up to an armed formation?
As a federal prisoner, John Johnson, also known as Grandmaster Jay, may face consequences if his group, the NFAC is involved in any illegal activities or if its members engage in behavior that violates the terms of his imprisonment. It is important to note that any individual or group engaging in behavior that violates the law or poses a threat to public safety may face consequences, regardless of their association with a particular organization. Law enforcement agencies will assess the situation and take appropriate action to address any potential threats to public safety. To report a matter to the FBI and ATF, you can contact your local FBI field office or ATF field division. To find the nearest FBI field office, you can visit the FBI's website at www.fbi.gov and click on Contact Us at the bottom of the page. To find the nearest ATF field division, you can visit the ATF's website at www.atf.gov and click on Contact Us at the bottom of the page. Alternatively, you can call the FBI's toll-free tip line at 1-800-CALL FBI 225-5324 to report information or suspected illegal activity. You can also report information to the ATF by calling its toll-free tip line at 1-888-ATF-TIPS 888-283-8477. It is important to note that the FBI and ATF may not be the appropriate agencies to contact in all cases, and it may be necessary to contact local law enforcement authorities depending on the nature of the situation.
Thank you so much for answering our question.
You are very welcome.